WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. Today on the program, we'll talk with two transit experts about why we're seeing a lot of accidents at Oakland County roundabouts and what we can do to make our commutes safer.
But first on the Metro. This past weekend, former President Donald Trump made a stop in Detroit for a little engagement with black voters. 4 years ago, 5% of black voters in Detroit cast ballots for the former president. But Trump was notably more popular with black and Latino men in 2020 compared with his 2016 run. So, will we see more black voters turn out for Trump this year? And why were so many Detroit rappers specifically out supporting the former president? Joining us in studio right now, we have WDET's Russ McNamara. Russ, welcome to the show.
Hello. Happy to make this my Metro debut.
Metro debut on the stop.
Incorrect. That was special coverage at McNamara, but it was during this time slot, but I'll take it.
Okay.
Alrighty then. So then we also may have Sam Robinson from Axios Detroit a little later on. If not, we're here with Russ, which is just fine.
You don't need me talking about Detroit rappers being on stage
exactly.
with Donald Trump.
You know.
Sam is the expert.
He is the guy. So Russ, you were at the event this past weekend. What were the vibes? What were you feeling when you were there?
It was definitely an event. It definitely did not feel like church.
Okay.
Even remotely, basically from the overall attitude, vibe, and it was quite the production. There was media there. They had a media riser set up. People were streaming in, checking people at the door. Secret Service was there, of course, but people weren't dressed up for church. This didn't feel like a church event. It was really unclear just how many people were parishioners of this particular church. I did not talk to a single one, so it was just an interesting vibe overall. I did talk with Lee Williams. 82-year-old Lee Williams made the drive in from Romulus for this event, and he's concerned about the economy.
Okay, let's go to Lee.
People can't buy food, can't pay their rent, they can't buy homes. That's what draws me to Donald Trump.
So that was a common complaint, was the economy all the way through it.
Oh, and that's what drew most of the people that you spoke to Donald Trump.
Right. But we were at church, and there was an underlying vibe, I guess, that Donald Trump is ordained by God. Brittany Moxley from Clinton Township, she basically asked her to read her hat for me.
Jesus is my savior. Trump is my president.
And that was a feeling I got.
That was the vibe.
That was the vibe. There was a lot of. She was there with her two kids. Her husband was also in the audience. She was a Detroiter, but she has since moved to the suburbs. Of the 8 people I talked to at length, only one of them were from Detroit, are still living in the city of Detroit. So that thread of godliness, I guess, that Trump is a holy person, continued. I talked with Pastor Arthur Cryer and his wife, Dominique, who's also a pastor. They preach at a church in Warren. They live in Farmington Hills. But I asked them if there was any hesitation that Donald Trump was convicted of fraud surrounding a hush money payment to a former adult star, and this is what he had to say.
Well, we believe that it was all a demonic agenda on the Democrat Party.
So there was a healthy dose of that running through the crowd overall. But when I say running through the crowd, I specifically sought out black voters.
Yes.
Because this was a black voter event.
Yes.
The stage it was entirely black people.
Yes.
The crowd was not. The stage, all black people. The crowd was probably generously 75-25. But taken overall, I would say the crowd was pretty close to 50-50.
50-50. So, Russ, what was Trump's messaging when you were there? What were some of the things that he was saying to the voters and those who were in attendance?
Immigration. They continue to hit immigration pretty hard about specifically millions of undocumented people are coming across the border and taking the jobs of black people. That's not entirely true. Essentially, unemployment is the same. Black unemployment in Detroit is the same now as it was pre-pandemic during the Trump administration. It's within a couple of tenths of a percentage, and it's pretty close.
Russ, real quick, you said there were, you mentioned the black people that were on the stage behind Donald Trump. Could you tell, or was there any way to know how many of them were from Detroit versus people that, like Brian Donaldson, congressman out of Florida, who was there representing him and such?
All those represented in the roundtable, they were all from Detroit, but it wasn't much of a roundtable. It was clearly canned questions. People would tell their stories and then ask a question that had been agreed to in advance. There was no audience participation. The actual people on the stage, I wasn't completely sure if they were, the people I were talking to after the event were the ones that were sitting on stage or ones from the audience. It was difficult because everybody else had to go it the same way. So,
Russ, one more question for you. You played the clip of the one individual saying the Democrat Party. Historically, I understand Democrats refer to themselves as the Democratic Party or Democrats. You don't really hear Democrat as often except for someone who maybe gets more of their news from conservative media. Do you know how many people in attendance that you spoke with were maybe gettable folks or were folks who were trying to figure something out versus those who were already on the side or maybe decided for Mr. Trump?
Other reporters talked with people who were still somewhat undecided. I know of a couple of people who did not go to the event, and they are undecided voters right now. They are unhappy with Joe Biden, but they also didn't vote for Donald Trump 4 years ago. So undecided voters were out there. I just did not talk with anybody. I tried to find people who weren't necessarily wearing the Donald Trump garb, but still, I did not find a single undecided voter.
WDET's Russ McNamara and Sam Robinson joining us live in studio talking about former President Donald Trump's visit to Detroit. And actually, we have Sam on the line. Sam, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Metro.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, Sam, from what you were able to gather, because you were also there this weekend, what were you able to gather from the voters when you were chatting with them?
Well, I did find at least one person who voted for Joe Biden in 2020, a 27-year-old guy who told me that Martell Bivings, who's running for Congress, he ran against Shree last time around as a Republican. And Martell Bivings sort of started it off. And then I think John James, congressman in Metro Detroit, sort of heard Bivings' speech and didn't want to be one-upped. There were sort of appealing messages. I came back to the Biden voter that I had talked to before the event began. He said he was just there for Martell, supporting his friend. And by the end of it, he said that he thinks he's pretty comfortable enough now that he can actually vote for Donald Trump, and that would be the first time he said he'll ever vote for a Republican. So as far as the people in the crowd is concerned, Russ, I'm right there with you. I don't think we can say it was majority anything. A lot of people, including Whoopi Goldberg on The View yesterday, did, though, and social media as well. You saw that chatter.
For sure. So, Sam, just thinking about the people who were in attendance as well, we saw some of the rappers, some of the well-known Detroit rappers there. Sada Baby, Icewear, Vezo, and V's were some of the names there. And if you don't know these names, of course, folks, it's okay. However, Detroit rappers were in attendance. So what was the messaging there for them being there?
It was really interesting to see the folks that I really expected would be there. Vezo and Peasy, these three are really people that I don't know any of these people. They're three of Detroit's, biggest commercially successful rappers in the last 5 years. If you don't know them, go check their music out. But they actually appeared at a campaign stop for RFK Jr. last month. They gave Vezo gave a wide-ranging interview with Rolling Stone. You can check it out, sort of on the apathy and sort of resentment of the Democratic Party. Peasy has been a vocal Trump supporter. He wanted the Trump shoes when they came out. And then Sada Baby, we've always kind of known that he's sort of had a conservative tinge going on to him. But it was interesting. I talked to him for about 5 minutes outside of the event, and they really believe in pretty much all the same things that you'd hear from the typical black Republican conservative. These folks are really ingrained in our communities. They appear at events with the city council president, Mary Sheffield. They'll do. Vezzo just did a giveaway with the bus. He just made the bus free.
Sam, real quick, for those who might not know, what would you say you would hear from the typical black conservative in Detroit?
They're focused on the things that Trump hit on. Certainly anti-LGBTQ, certainly anti-immigration, illegal immigration. Folks here believe that immigrants coming from the southern border are taking up space in our shelters, are taking up resources. How accurate their beliefs are, right? We know that a lot of people think that Trump was responsible for the stimulus checks. A lot of people believe things that certainly can be contested, but that's I guess up to Democrats to sort of correct the record.
Yeah. So Russ, you wanted to add to that as well?
Well, I was going to say, and Sam, I don't know if you noticed this the same way I did, but it seemed like one of the biggest applause lines was Donald Trump going after the LGBTQ community. That drew widespread applause and a standing ovation. And that certainly seems like a thread that has been throughout this campaign and black conservatism in the city of Detroit.
Black conservatism in the city of Detroit, not even deployed by black conservatives, Russ. I mean, I hear that line from Democrats that they don't want their soldiers in red high heels and lipstick is the line. I think that, Trump said, he's not wrong, or he's got a point. The former president said. So that is the motivating issue. I think that is uniting the right now, for better or worse. They hate transgender people, and they really don't know what to do with it. I ask, well, what's going to happen to them when all these laws are enacted? What should happen to these people? And they don't have an answer. So it is very interesting that this is the issue that is sort of, both times. I think those are the only two standing ovations, Russ. And he said, it's incredible. When I talk about this issue, this is the reaction I always get.
We were chatting with WDET's Russ McNamara and Axios Detroit's Sam Robinson. Thank you so much for joining us both in studio today to chat a little bit more about what's going on with the Trump campaign.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, guys.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. And coming up, we'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of roundabouts.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at the University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new Master of Science degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. Admission is open to qualified applicants with a bachelor's degree in any field. Course selection is flexible, with no prerequisites, 4 required courses, and 6 electives. Learn more at business.udmercy.edu.
I'm Rachel Martin. You probably know how interview podcasts with famous people usually go. There's a host, a guest, and a light Q&A. But on Wildcard, we have ripped up the typical script. It's a new podcast from NPR where I invite actors, artists, and comedians to play a game using a special deck of cards to talk about some of life's biggest questions. Listen to Wildcard wherever you get your podcasts, only from NPR.
This is The Metro on 101.9 WDET FM, and we're talking about roads and roundabouts.
That's right. Depending on who you ask, people love roundabouts or they hate them. And transit experts like those at the Federal Highway Administration tend to like them for their tendency to improve safety. Why does this happen? If you're going through a roundabout, it forces you to travel through the intersection at a lower speed, thus making any accidents that would occur lower impact. When you go through a red light at a higher speed, the impact is going to be higher, causing more damage. But when you ask drivers, some say roundabouts can be confusing and difficult to navigate. Recent studies of driving in Michigan have highlighted these thoughts, and that's because in the Detroit area with the most crashes includes roundabout intersections. Those a little more confused with how to navigate them. Is all of this true, or it's also true that these accidents are more likely to be non-fatal, like I mentioned, but that being said, should we expand our use of roundabouts in Southeast Michigan? To discuss this now, we have two transit experts with us. Starting off, we've got Craig Bryson, the Senior Communications Manager for the Road Commission for Oakland County. Craig, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you much. Good to be here.
Also with us, Brian Santo, Director of the Macomb County Department of Roads. Brian, welcome to the Metro.
Welcome, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Craig, we'll start with you. Just real basic. Not everybody out there has still seen a roundabout. So for those who haven't navigated one yet, can you tell us how they work and how they're different from traditional intersections?
Absolutely. So it is, as the name implies, a circular intersection with the traffic traveling in a counterclockwise direction around the center island. It forces the driver to slow down, curve a little bit to the right to gradually curve into the circular part of the roundabout and then travel around to their destination. As you mentioned, safety-wise, what they do is eliminate the two most dangerous kinds of crashes at signalized intersections, and that's head-on collisions and what we call T-bone collisions, where somebody's turning left and gets broadsided as they're turning in front of an oncoming car. So that is, from a safety point of view, that's kind of one of the basic benefits.
Yeah. And, we think a lot about Europe and the UK specifically when we think about roundabouts. They did increase a lot in Michigan since the 90s. But do you know why there's been this disconnect between here and overseas, and what caused Oakland County officials to decide to finally get behind and try to bring them over here more?
Yeah, we were actually we built the first roundabout in Michigan in 1999, and we've now got 41, the highest concentration of anywhere in the state. And we studied them for quite a while before we did that. We were skeptical to begin with, too, but the data is pretty overwhelming. But it is interesting. I don't know if it's a cultural difference between us and the UK, for example. They have truly embraced them over there. They were invented in the 1960s in the UK, and since then they've truly embraced them. But it may just be more of the independent spirit of Americans. I don't know. It's an interesting psychological question.
Yeah, and let's loop you in on this, Brian. That's no roundabout, pun intended. But I do want to get your take on what we're seeing here also, because if we were to look at the negatives, even though we've talked a little bit about reducing injury, an increase in accidents doesn't make anybody feel any better, right? They're like, well, wait a second. If I don't know how to navigate this, if there's more cars getting damaged, I see that. I don't want to be part of an accident. What is your take on the issues between safety and training folks for these roundabouts, Brian?
For sure. Great question. And we don't have the extent or number of roundabouts that Oakland County does. I think we have 15 total currently. We just built one just recently this past year at Van Dyke and Campground in Washington Township. But as Craig said, public safety is the number one concern for us as road agencies. And as you can see, there might be a slight uptick in overall crashes in those types of intersections, but it significantly reduces the amount of serious injuries and fatalities, which is key to us to focus on as a road agency, being that safety is the number one goal for us with the residents and the motoring public out on our roadway. So you get minor fender bender, side swipes, you get lower impact speeds as far as the accidents. So
it significantly reduces that serious injury and fatality rate. So that is important to us as a county.
Yeah, and if they have those benefits, though, Brian, you did mention it's been a little bit slower to get the uptake there in Macomb County. What's the plan moving forward? Are you guys trying to expand this out? Do you have the will from the folks? What's your current plan on the future of roundabouts in your county?
We do have more roundabouts planned. We've got a couple in the queue, and we look at installing more roundabouts as we go into the future here. So we do see the benefit, right place, right location. It's not a location or a construction roundabout for every location, but a lot of places it does make sense. Once again, reducing congestion, improving efficiency, and enhancing the safety measures of the intersections as we move forward here.
We're speaking with Craig Bryson, Road Commission, with the Road Commission for Oakland County, as well as Brian Santo, Macomb County Department of Roads Director. We're talking about roundabouts right now in Michigan, their proliferation. One of the reasons that we're getting into it is there were 114 crashes on average between 2018 and 2022 on a roundabout at 14 Mile and Orchard Lake, according to data from the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. This is in Oakland County, so I want to loop you back into the conversation here, Craig, because when we hear numbers like that, and you mentioned the safety concerns here, I guess it would be, well, how do we get more people acclimated to roundabouts? Is this something where it's inherent that you're going to have higher numbers of accidents there, or is there something that you guys are looking to do to lower that number, and it's not as inherent? What would you say to that, Craig?
Well, I don't think it's inherent, but I do think it is incumbent upon us to continue to do education and try to teach people, make sure they understand how to use these. Frankly, we've been doing driver education for 25 years now on roundabouts, but you can never do enough. I mean, we've done everything we can think of. We'll talk to any organization that wants to hear from us about how to drive them. We've worked with drivers education programs. We've worked with senior associations, and we're always looking for ways to get the word out about how to do that. We've also learned over the years, we've found some things work better than others. And we've found, initially the thought was you build the roundabout as big as you can to handle future traffic growth. The problem with that is we found that the bigger the roundabout is, the less what we call lane discipline the drivers have. That means they're more likely to switch lanes within the roundabout, and that means some of them are more likely to switch without looking to see if there's somebody else in the lane next to them. So we've kind of landed on making them smaller where we can, and that seems to be improving safety. So there are some design tweaks we have learned over the years.
Mm-hmm. And I want to loop you in here, Brian, because maybe the traffic patterns in Macomb, would you say that they're the same or different when it comes to this? What have you found, and what would you need or want? What would you advocate for so that we can increase safety using these roundabouts?
We've seen the same types of things that Craig had mentioned. Larger is not always necessarily better when it comes to roundabouts. Keeping them to a single or dual lane roundabout is key and critical as far as the education and the familiarity with the drivers driving through the roundabouts. So, like I said, keeping it to a single lane or a single lane with a right-hand offshoot for a right turn is critical in kind of reducing the amount of fender benders through those types of intersections and roundabout areas.
Yeah.
So that is critical in moving forward with us too, the size.
Well, let's close it out here, guys. Let's think of the future then for both of you. Got about 30 seconds left, but starting with you, Craig, what percentage of our intersections do you think should be roundabouts? Could we just make every intersection a roundabout? Would that be healthy, or what are you looking at when you decide intersection with lights versus a roundabout?
Well, not every intersection. The design lends itself better to some than others. But the thing we haven't talked about is the traffic benefits. We've seen massive reductions in congestion where we built it. So that's, in addition to the safety, that's a big thing. And I think we can do a lot to reduce congestion in Oakland County by building more roundabouts. And that's why we now consider them. Anytime we're doing work on an intersection, we'll consider whether a roundabout is good for that location or not.
Yeah, before I let you go, Brian, that is fair. I do want to make sure we touch on all the benefits, not just that safety portion. What else would you like people to know about why you are an advocate for roundabouts and how they help with our traffic?
Well, aside from enhancing safety, like Craig said, improved efficiency, increased road capacity, and it does reduce emissions and fuel consumption. Traffic is stopping less often. They're able to go through the intersection more efficiently on the fly. So, yes, definitely safety, but as well, reduced emissions, fuel consumption, and road capacity. Less congestion, less backups means less accidents also. So we look forward to more roundabouts, not every intersection, but definitely uptick in roundabouts in Macomb County also.
Very good. Craig Bryson, Senior Communications Manager for the Road Commission for Oakland County, as well as Brian Santo, Macomb County Department of Roads Director. Thank you both for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Drive safe.
This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Coming up, we're going to talk about movie night in the D. It's returning for free this summer. You want to learn more? Stay right there. It's the Metro.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. Got a great conversation coming up about movie night in the D returning. Before we get into that, just want to update you as we did speak again with the mayor of Rochester Hills following the tragic shooting at the splash pad. We have learned that police recovered 11 firearms from the home of a man who shot 9 people last week at the splash pad. Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard says at least 3 of the victims have been released from the hospital. So we are happy about that, and we will keep monitoring the story as it continues.
Indeed, we will. WDET Newsroom will have more on that as the day goes on. However, we're talking about tomorrow night. Movie night in the D returns with a free showing of the musical drama The Color Purple in observance of Juneteenth. This movie begins a summer of hits like The Fifth Element, one of my favorites, and a Spanish movie night as well. Movie night extends through the end of August at Campus Martius Park. And to tell us a little bit more about movie nights in the D, we have David Cowan. David is the Chief Public Spaces Officer for the Downtown Detroit Partnership. David, thanks for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much, Nick and Tia. Pleasure to be with you here today.
Of course. So why begin on Juneteenth?
Well, what better day to kick it off? There's so many wonderful celebrations going on all across downtown Detroit, from Capitol Park with the Stories of Us, a new public art exhibition, to, of course, Campus Martius Park, a time-honored tradition with movie nights in the D, now 21 years old.
That was going to be one of my questions. How long has this been going? 21 years?
21 years, and provided through generous support from Fago for almost that entire time, if you can believe that. So we love the hometown turnout. We love being able to provide free movie nights all the way through summer, June through August, and love being able to celebrate Juneteenth in so many ways across the community.
I know this, like you said, there could be so many different things that are happening throughout downtown Detroit where you can just pop in, pop out, and even bring your stuff and sit down and watch a movie when you're ending your night. So what are some of the things that you've heard over the years, or just in general, just passing by from visitors who've experienced movie nights in the D?
Oh, well, visitors love the downtown Detroit parks in general. We have over 4.2 million visitors every year. And what most people love is that no matter what day you come out to the park, there's always something fun and free to do. We've had such an incredible run so far this year, a busy start to the year with the NFL Draft and the Detroit Grand Prix and the Michigan Central opening. And really what people love is just the ability to casually come out to the park and enjoy the frequency of all of these wonderful events. So much momentum going on across the city, and we're proud to be part of that.
It's so much momentum. So what about, okay, because we're in it right now. You walked in from outside, the heat that we're dealing with. So, when we think about the extreme heat that we're facing in this city of Detroit, what are some of the things that you all are going to do if we do have something that's just way too hot and, we have to cancel? Are we going to move it to a different space? Are there cooling methods?
Totally. Yeah. The heat island effect in Detroit is something a lot of us are working on for sure. So, movie night in the D, definitely dress appropriately for the weather. We're watching the heat index very closely. We're going to have plenty of water. Thankfully, just as long as Fago's been a partner, AbSuperior has been teaming up with us to provide free water too. So that's incredible, and we thank them. We've planted close to 20 trees this year, so we're thinking about that both in the short term and the long term. We have umbrellas, but definitely dress appropriately for the weather. Bring your friends and family, have a picnic, and just enjoy. Before you know it, it'll be winter, so you want to soak up the warmth while you can.
Before you know it, it'll be winter. The cool thing is summer does begin this week, the summer solstice, so super excited about that as well. You talked about the Heat Island. We're going to get into a conversation right after this conversation about Heat Islands that Nick Austin did a little bit earlier this last month, actually. So right now we're chatting with David Cowan, Chief Public Spaces Officer for the Downtown Detroit Partnership. So what are some of the cool things, other things that you were just talking about? You got into that, but what are things that are also going to be running alongside movie nights in the D?
Yeah, there's so many great things. For the color purple on Juneteenth, we have Detroit's poet laureate, Nandi Comer, who's going to be there doing a nice prelude to it. Really just have been really intentional with our programs and events over the past five years, and have welcomed so many free things for people to do. We have over 200 community partners we work with now across the city of Detroit, and that culminates in 1,400 free events throughout the year. Everything from food truck rallies to bourbon gardens at Grand Circus Park to the beach at Campus Martius Park with its infamous beach parties that have been going on for a while, to even events for dogs and their owners, at Grand Circus Dog Park and Capitol Park, which have been really fun to build over time. So we quite literally have something for everybody throughout the summer, and that's really because we want everybody there.
I was so sad I missed the Barbie beach party last summer when we had the big Barbie everything happen. That was so cool. It looked like people had so much fun out there. But back to the movies. How are the movies selected?
Yeah, we have a spirited debate as a curatorial team on what movies we pick for sure. And there is a formula to it. We have offerings for kids as part of it. You noticed, Tia, your favorite Fifth Element cult classic. We have to have a cult classic.
Gotta have a cult classic.
So you'll see that as a theme pop up from year to year. We like to storytell. We've got great dramas. We have a musical in there. Some Like It Hot's having a big anniversary this year. Also tied together with Broadway in Detroit, who's showing Some Like It Hot as well.
Yeah, with this weather, playing Some Like It Hot, I just think is just flying a little too close to the sun, don't you, man? You're like making us all think about what's happening there. How about Some Like It Cool or Cooler?
There you go.
That'd be the move.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what else would you let people know about some movie nights in the D for summer 2024, showings or different things like that? Like what time?
Yeah, all free. It starts at 7 p.m., but get there early. And if you'd like to, you can bring a blanket, and there's a front row seat for you that's made especially for those who want a picnic. And no need to bring a chair, but you can if you want, but no need to bring them because they're provided for you. And there's a bar. There's popcorn from Pop and Top Hat, so we love to support them. And, of course, Faygo products, Absopure water being served and sold as well. So it's really a nice atmosphere to be in the heart of downtown Detroit in the action with all these people just watching a film. You don't get that collective experience very much anymore, and we're happy to preserve it.
I love it, especially when it's outdoors. It just gives me the vibe of going to a drive-in movie theater. So I love that so much. And I'm just thinking to myself, just before I let you go, what's one of the movies that you're looking forward to this summer?
Well, I'm with you. I love The Fifth Element. And actually, selfishly, I picked that because it's my wife's favorite movie. So she'll be there with her wig on. And I think you could encourage everyone to dress up as well.
Yes, I know. I just always say to myself, multipass, because I just think of her with the little multipass trying to get in somewhere. So I love that so much. But what's your favorite Faygo flavor?
Oh, I'm a rock and rye guy through and through.
Cream soda, but rock and rye is good. I do appreciate liking a flavor that you can't get in a lot of other places.
And they're always coming out with new ones too, so it's good to come sample some.
Exactly, I like them all. So David Cowan is the Chief Public Spaces Officer for the Downtown Detroit Partnership. Movie Nights in the D begin tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at Campus Martius Park with a showing of the 2023 musical drama, The Color Purple. David, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
This was so fun. Thank you so much.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET, where weather today, an excessive heat warning continues for Metro Detroit with heat index values expected to reach 100. While there's also a chance of rain, we want to make sure with extreme heat remaining through the weekend that you're exercising caution, staying hydrated, and finding places to cool down, as several days of excessive heat in a row increases the risk of heat-related illnesses.
If you head on over to WDET.org right now, you can find all of the cooling centers that we have posted for you all. So just in case you need to get a little relief, you can do so at one of the cooling centers. Remember, all of the libraries as well, cooling centers. But temperatures in Detroit rose into the 90s yesterday, and they will continue into the 90s through most of the week. That means certain neighborhoods without much tree cover are expected to be exceptionally hot. That's true in our city. An analysis of 44 cities around the country by a nonprofit, Climate Central, found that Detroit and its suburbs have had a heat island effect of 8 degrees, which is just behind Phoenix, Arizona. Jen Brady is a senior data analyst at Climate Central, and she spoke with my co-host Nick Austin recently about what the heat island effect is.
Well, they call it a heat island because what it usually is an area, and all the kind of area surrounding it is cooler than the area. So the heat island is this kind of the inner area. They call it the urban heat island because it's usually in cities that you see it most, because it's caused by pavement, lots of concrete, lots of brick, and that's what we see in cities.
So if we're anticipating a really hot summer, how much of it should we say is because of this heat island effect? I mean, we know that we've got raising temperatures generally. How would you measure that effect and what's occurring in places like Detroit?
Well, what the heat island effect is it's putting heat on top of the heat we're already getting. So the temperatures are increasing everywhere. The temperatures are increasing in the country. The temperatures are increasing in the city. But what it means is, for example, I heard you talk about it's going to be about 81 tomorrow. Well, that might be in kind of a leafy area. But somewhere where you're having an urban heat island effect, it may be 8 degrees hotter than that because of the surrounding environment. And so that's the urban heat island effect. It's heat on top of the rising temperatures we're already seeing.
I'm glad you mentioned shade or the ideas of greenery, because a local nonprofit here, the Greening of Detroit, has plans to plant 70,000 trees in 5 years. Would items like this, let's just talk about that specific example. What would something like that do for the heat island effect, if anything?
Yeah, trees are one of the first things that people do, and it really is an effective solution because it does two things. First of all, it keeps the sun from hitting the pavement and absorbing, so it's bouncing back before it even gets there. And then it's also just providing shade. When you stand under the tree, I think we've all crossed the street to the shady side of the street when it's too hot, and the trees are going to provide that shade. So they kind of have a dual impact. And also it's a very community-sized thing you can do. You don't necessarily need a huge effort. It's great if you have a huge effort, like it's going on in Detroit, but you could also, as a community, decide to plant a bunch of trees in an area to help cool off your neighborhood.
You mentioned that planting trees can have a positive effect, but is that enough, or what other things should cities like Detroit be doing to try to reduce the heat island effect?
The main thing is breaking up that heat, and greenery is usually the first thing people think of. There are kind of more outside-the-box solutions. Some places are painting dark surfaces, lighter colors. You may have heard about green roofs, or even seen where they paint the roofs white where they're black, because the black will absorb a lot more heat. We're seeing places it's really hot. They're painting the roadways where they're a darker gray or a darker color. They're painting the roadways a lighter color. So that's another solution. But usually the first one people do is the greenery to break up that heat and reduce it. And it's kind of the most straightforward solution.
You know, when we look at the numbers out there, we have places like Wichita, Kansas, Newark, New Jersey, Raleigh, and North Carolina, all with relatively low heat island effect scores. Is it because they've implemented these things like you've mentioned, specifically trees, as well as maybe these green roofs that you mentioned? Or what are the things that are causing them to have these low heat island effect scores?
Sometimes it's just the design of the city, how the city grows. Detroit is an old city with lots of, old buildings, old structures, stone structures, lots of pavement. So it may just be how the city has grown over the years. A lot of northern cities are actually designed hold heat in, because we think of the cold weather in the winter and we thought, oh, we want to hold that heat in. But now that's becoming a problem. So it's not necessarily that they are striking out ahead, unfortunately. It may just be that the design of their city has led to less heat island effect where we're at right now.
Jen Brady is a senior data analyst at the nonprofit Climate Central. She spoke with Nick Austin about the heat island effect.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET, and coming up, we'll talk about a poetry performance occurring tomorrow that is celebrating Juneteenth. Keep it locked right here.
This is the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. Getting into another conversation about things happening tomorrow, Juneteenth.
That's right. Tomorrow is Juneteenth, a celebration, Tia, commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in these here United States. It's an important day reflecting on June 19th, 1865, when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce that the Civil War had ended and all enslaved people were now free. The last large swath of African Americans who didn't know about that. It's a big event here in Detroit. There will be many events celebrating this holiday, including one on the calendar cut that yours truly actually is hosting, and I'm very much looking forward to this. Juneteenth on the Cut is what it's called. It will feature live music, an immersive historical walk, food trucks, performances that reflect Black culture in the city, as well as history, the arts, and one of the groups performing there is Inside Out's Literary Arts, a Detroit-based organization empowering youth through poetry and other forms of literary expression. It's happening in collaboration with the Hannon Center, and it's organizing right now an intergenerational workshop bringing together teens and elders to explore and share their personal and cultural histories through poetry. To learn more about this project, which will be showcased for the first time tomorrow at Juneteenth on the Cut, we have two of the participants. First up, Janice Burnett, who is an experienced children's librarian since retirement, training as a storyteller, and helps with Inside Out's writing program for several years, mentoring young poets. Janice, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you so much for having us, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We're also joined by Ayanna Bowden, who has been a participant with Inside Out Literary Arts, doing all of her high school years at the Detroit School of Arts. She just completed her first freshman year at Grand Valley State University. Ayanna, welcome to the Metro.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're pretty happy to have both of you here. I did mention I'm going to be hosting this event, but it's really cool to see some of the poetry that you guys are going to be getting into. It's going to be the first time people will have a chance to see this. So let's start with you, Janice. I did a little bit of a preview, but can you tell us what this project is all about and how it connects for you to Juneteenth?
Well, this project is one that was really exciting for me. It was, call it intergenerational, but I am a wannabe creative, and I love being with other people that are creative, and it's especially exciting to be able to share it with a group that is outside the generation that I'm normally with all the time. And so we had 2 sessions. Really wasn't enough. I really wanted more and more because we really started to bond. The first session, we worked on projects kind of individually. And then the second one, we came together and we really had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to meet with and sit with each one of the young people that was there. And we found out so much about each other. The second one was just light years different from the first, and we really had such a great time and sharing and creating with each other.
Yeah. And for you, Ayanna, someone who's part of this process, I mean, the project, again, was about connecting intergenerational folks together. What drew you to being a part of this and wanting to participate?
Well, first off, I would never turn down an Inside Out program. or, a literary arts program. I've been with them, as you said, since the beginning of my high school years. And for this program, I thought that this one in particular was interesting. I feel like as a teenager, I have room to talk to the youth all the time about different topics, but exploring through a different generation and through a different eye and putting myself in someone else's shoes, that is what interested me within this program. Getting to know someone else personality-wise and hearing their stories about, their experiences back in the day and just learning things new, connecting with each other. That's why I came for this program.
Yeah, and I love hearing this from both of you because we talk about this intergenerational aspect of it. As generations change, there's things that will be different about us, but there's probably some similarities that you might not have realized. Was there anything that really struck you, and we'll start here with you, Ayanna, in speaking and getting prepared for this, that you were like, oh, we have these similarities, or what did you learn from this experience about the connection that you might have with your elders that you didn't know beforehand?
Okay, so one thing that really stuck out to me as a connection, we had a prompt, and the prompt was basically saying something that we connect with, that we identify with, and most of the older generation responses was basically our responses. It was just a different time period, a different generation, and of course they did things a bit differently, but like we had connections of like liking hair or liking fashion or liking to bake or, poetry, of course. And it was just interesting to see how we can connect with the same subjects, but how we do them differently generation-wise.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that really stuck out to me.
We're speaking with two participants with Inside Out that will be performing at the Juneteenth on the Cut event that's happening tomorrow, 2 p.m., I believe, at the DeQuinder Cut. I will get the specific time later. Thank you. See, Ayanna knows. That's what's up there. Speaking not only with Ayanna Bowden, who's a young poet and Inside Out participant, but also Janice Burnett, a storyteller, puppeteer, and poet. Janice, I want to give you the same opportunity, though. What really opened your eyes as part of this experience? What did you learn that you think people need to know more about?
I was so inspired by our young people. We hear so many thoughts, negative thoughts about our young people, and about how, we're really going to the dogs, etc. But I was so inspired by the creativity, the warmth, the brilliance of the young people that participated in this workshop. I have always believed that there was genius, and in that room, I just found so much to be inspired by in each one of the young people that I interacted with. It just threw away everything that you hear about and people talk about by just revealing. Our exchange and our interfacing just gave me such a new and warm and inspiring impression of the next generation.
Yeah, and when we think of those connections also, the Black experience is going to be something that's really key to what's happening here. Was there anything from this interaction, and I'll start with you there because you're doing such a great job right now, Janice, that you really came out to you, especially as we're going to have stories from Black Bottom that are going to pop up also on the DeQuinder Cut. What did you learn more about the shared Black experience that we're having intergenerationally?
Their perspective, their verbiage, and how their thoughts about it. There is such depth of thought and feeling about the world around them. We see, we think that, everything is TikTok and the dance and singing, but they have such depth of thought and impressions about the world around them, and they're thinking about it. They want to express and have their voices heard, and I really want to hear their voice. They have a lot to give us if we just listen.
Yeah. And I want to give you an opportunity before we get out of here. I got like a minute left. But Ayanna, for you, if there's anything that you most took away from this whole process, and again, you're going to be debuting that poetry that you guys made together tomorrow at the performance, what would you like to share with folks, letting them know why this was so important for you and what they can expect to see tomorrow?
This was important for me because it highlighted a chance for us to share experiences, share trauma, share just all types of things with each other, and just make common connections regardless of age or, regardless of ethnicity or where you come from or, what you've been through. We connected in so many different ways, which is beautiful. And tomorrow, that is what we will be portraying through our poetry, our connections through each other.
Yeah. Janice Burnett, storyteller, puppeteer, and poet, as well as Ayanna Bowden, young poet with the Inside Out program, both performing tomorrow, Juneteenth on the Cut. Thank you both for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so that you know, Juneteenth on the Cut, again, it's happening Wednesday, June 19th, 2 to 7 p.m., Campbell Terrace on the DeQuinder Cut. I'm going to be your host for that. That intergenerational storytelling performance is happening at 3. You can also hear music from Dave McMurray, Core 375 debut performance, and a WDET alum, Reverend Robert Jones, presented by the Concert of Colors.
That's the Metro for Tuesday, June 18th. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
The show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt. Our engineer is Nate Bender. Sydney Walkley and Anel Scott are our assistant producers.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at WDET.org/donate.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon again on the Metro.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.